Okay, this doesn't necessarily translate to strength because it isn't directly training. You can't just sit at home and practice your isometric breathing, talk while you're training. That's how you breathe. That's how you gains. Yo, what's going on, guys? Rhys here from More Than Lifting with the More Than Lifting podcast. Conversations about calisthenics, bodyweight training, gymnastics, all that good stuff. I'm Rhys, personal trainer from the UK and founder of morethanlifting.com. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about breathing, okay? Specifically for isometric stuff, but we're going to go over the regular reps and dynamic movement breathing as well, because it's really important that you get your breathing right while you're training. Because if you can't get your breathing right, then you're going to be held up in all sorts of ways, okay? And I'm going to explain that a little bit too. But for now, guys, this is hopefully going to be quite a short episode, and I'm not going to be giving you a lot of examples because you basically don't want to listen to me breathing down the mic to you the whole time while you're trying to listen to this episode. So what I'm going to do is explain very as best a way as I can and how different breathing techniques specifically for isometric exercises, the hold exercises, and how you can kind of learn to breathe better and start to breathe at all. Because the problem is, right, you're trying to do an exercise and it's not just a hold. Like a crow stand, you should be able to breathe while you're doing a crow stand, all right? But when you're thinking about more advanced stuff that take a lot more tension, things like a front lever, if you're trying to do a front lever, like there's a lot of squeezing and tensing and tightening and holding going on. And if you can't breathe while you're doing that, then ultimately you're always going to be held up by your breath. You're going to run out of air, so you're going to run out of oxygen and your lungs going to be gasping for breath. And it doesn't matter how strong you are, your isometric hold is limited by how long you can hold your breath. So if you can do an L-sit now, you can just do an L-sit, chances are your breathing in your L-sit isn't very good because your whole body is tense. Yeah, there's a lot of energy being expended, and for you to be able to breathe while you're doing that requires you to be able to actually maintain a position, hold your body still. All right, that's quite difficult, and it was really hard. It was a big sticking point for me when I started training. So I'm going to try and explain this isometric breathing technique to you via audio, and hopefully it makes a good bit of sense. All right, so before we get into that, I've heard all kinds of strange ideas around breathing while you're doing training in like the weights and kind of gym space and outside of it. And for me, there is only one way to breathe while you're doing a dynamic exercise. That is an exercise where you're moving, you're doing reps, things like push-ups, pull-ups, muscle-ups, like anything like that, any kind of rep-based exercise. There's only one real way for you to breathe efficiently. Okay, and it's not taking 2 breaths in a rep or 3, 5, 10 breaths over and over. Sometimes you might have to pause and go and just catch your breath quick so you can complete your set, and that's all right. But really, it should just be a kind of in and out, and you're breathing out. All right, and this is important. You breathe out when you're exerting force, when you're pushing against gravity. So for this, not always when you're pushing against gravity, but when you're working against your resistance. Okay, so not the negative, but it's the positive, I guess, of the movement. So for push exercises, this is when you're pushing, and for pull exercises, it's when you're pulling. All right, and the reason it matters is because if your core is tight, yeah, so when you do a pull-up, your core and your trunk and everything's tight, activating all those muscles. Yeah, if you're trying to breathe in, it's very hard to get a decent breath in and keep your body, your trunk tight and active. Yeah, all those muscles. Okay, you can try it now. Tighten up everything. Try and breathe in. It's very difficult. All right, but if you tighten everything up and then you breathe out, if you try breathing out quickly now, when you breathe out, you generally tighten up your core a bit. The same with your ribs, like all the muscles around your rib cage. You breathe out, and it tightens all that up in your trunk. Yeah, so you can either try and breathe in and stay tight and let everything expand. When you breathe in, a lot of people's bellies even tuck in a little bit because they don't have like a good, it sounds silly, but a decent degree of control over their diaphragm and like isolated control. And I guess this is kind of what you're developing in this thing. I mean, I don't really know, but I know I know a lot of practical knowledge about this kind of stuff. I don't really know a lot of the science of breathing necessarily. I'm sure there are people who are like yogis and stuff like that would be much better at teaching this kind of stuff than me. But specifically for training, it's really simple. When you're pushing and you push up, you go, so you go down and you breathe in, pause, and then and exert all the force. And that's when you're exerting all that force is when you breathe out, because it tightens up your trunk better. If you try and do it when you're breathing in, it makes it a lot harder. Okay, so we've got that cleared up, okay? With the dynamic exercise, when you're exerting your force, you're breathing out, okay? And then when you're doing your negative, you're breathing in, all right? So that's how you breathe. Then with isometrics, it is different because you're not moving. You're holding still, okay? And that means everything's tight and everything's squeezed and you're trying to maintain position. But ultimately, when you're starting this kind of stuff, you're probably holding your breath. You're probably not breathing while tight. Okay, and you need to learn to do this so that you can get past a 3-second or a 5-second L-sit, and you can get onto things like planche presses and front lever pulls and stuff, which aren't just like an advanced skill, but they're a dynamic version of it. So it's even harder after the fact. So to be able to do like your front lever or your flag or your back lever, you need to be able to breathe in that position. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to hold any longer than, say, 5 seconds. And that then limits your training because you can't breathe properly and not because of your strength. So you can see how that's limiting, right? So how do you fix it? When your body's tight and you're working, you need to be able, initially, you're going to be shuddering, shaking all over the place. Okay, so the easiest way for you to be able to learn to start breathing is to just open up your airwaves and kind of let your shaky, trembly body do all the work for you, okay? And it's not going to be a fix, okay? But it's going to be starting the process of you learning to breathe and control your diaphragm whilst the rest of your trunk is tense, okay? And the rest of your body even, okay? So that's the first stage. And what's going to happen is your body is, because your diaphragm's doing tiny little movements, shaking and shuddering with the rest of you, it's going to create that kind of little shudder in your lungs, which is going to create a tiny bit of airflow between your lungs and your mouth, which is going to create like a little circulation of air in your mouth, and next thing you're going to be breathing, okay? And it's very slight. It's not a solution, like I say, but it's a start, and you'll be able to do that. You might even be able to hold like a 20-second or something, just going and just let in your diaphragm and do all the work for you. Let the isometric, let all that tension in your body do a little bit of the work for you. Okay, and once you can kind of learn to do that, and I can't really demonstrate that to you without it getting a bit strange, but it's basically where it's like doing 1,000 tiny little pants just under your breath. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to try and do it all to you down the mic because it won't work. And yeah, so sorry about that. So then the next stage, you can kind of hold the skill a little bit longer. The next stage is to start to learn to breathe in, take sharper breaths in, because we've already established that breathing in is the hardest part, because that's where, because when you're breathing out, a lot of your body's tight anyway, so that you can breathe out and be tight, that's easy. But breathing in is the difficult part. So what you want to do is start taking that little shuddery breath happening and start slowing it down and starting to slowly take control of it. And it will only be light, very shallow breathing, around 10% of your volume at first, 5 to 10%. And you'll slowly be able to increase that, be able to slow it down and control it a little bit better. And eventually you'll be holding your L-sit and you'll be casual, you'll be able to talk even. Okay, and this is really when you achieve a degree of mastery of an isometric exercise, when you can hold it and talk, okay? And this is a great way to do finishes because you kind of forget that you're hurting so much because you're trying to focus on talking and answering questions, and it confuses your brain into being better, basically. It's very, very advanced training tips for you there. Talk while you're breathing. But yeah, so talk while you're training, sorry. But it's very difficult, and so when you try and do that, that also helps you, force you to breathe a bit better, and it shows that you can now do that hanging L. No, that isn't really a struggle for you anymore because you can talk. So guys, look, this is going to be a short episode because that is literally it for breathing. Once you've got the pattern for dynamic exercises right, you'll find that your dynamic exercises, you just have so much force while you're doing your exercise. So it'll make your pulls easier, it'll make your dips easier, it'll make every exercise that little bit easier because you'll have better muscle activation across your body because you'll be breathing right. And that will enable you to do better reps. It will enable you to do more reps, and it will enable you to focus on your technique rather than just worrying about being able to do a rep or two. Okay, and that's because you're channeling your energy right. Okay, and that sounds kind of silly, and I kind of regret even say channeling your energy, but you're making every part of your body work to its max, like to the advantage. Yeah, if you're breathing funny, if you're breathing strange, or if you're breathing in a way that's making it harder for you to train, then your results are going to be less than they would if you were working to optimize that time. Okay, so really that is it for today, guys. Focus on your breathing while you're training and you'll immediately see better results in your training. Okay, this doesn't necessarily translate to strength because it isn't directly training necessarily. You can't just sit at home and practice your isometric breathing. I mean, you can if you're doing like L-sits or something like that, but you're not just going to breathe your way into six-pack or muscle up or planche. You know, I'm going to breathe my way to the planche. It doesn't work like that. But if you breathe right in your exercises, you will see an improvement in the quality of your movement, and that then compounds and becomes gains because that's how it works. If your training is better and more efficient and the quality of your movement and your range of motion and all this stuff is better, then your results will be better because you're essentially doing more work. Because that's the thing, a lot of these exercises, they're hard, you know, so if you're doing them the easy way, then you get less results. Guys, look, that is it. This episode. I know I've rambled on a little bit about breathing today, and it's a bit strange, but I'm keeping it short because, you know, there's only so much you can say about air. All right. I hope this reaches your ears and translates into your training in the way that I hope it will, in the way that I want it to. If you do have any questions about isometric breathing techniques or anything, if you're struggling with this kind of stuff, or if you've just never thought of it before and had a sudden revelation in your L-sit the whole time, then let me know. Hit me up on the DM. If you like what you heard, give us a like and a subscribe, and obviously an honest 5-star rating and review. Wink, wink. And like I said, at More Than Lifting everywhere. If you have any questions or any comments or anything, just reach out to me. A DM on Instagram is probably best. And if you're ready to take your training to the next level, then jump on the 12-week program. It is absolutely intense, but it'll take you from 0 to bodyweight athlete in 3 months, and you will learn all kinds of crazy stuff along the way. Go to morethanlifting.com/12weeks to find out more. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next one, where we're going to be talking about more of these kind of little training skills, technique things. I haven't got a decent name for them yet, but I'm sure I'll find one soon enough. Anyway, I'll speak to you in a couple of days, guys. As always, keep in touch with yourselves, and put the work in.